Hello, so here we are. We're going to talk about proteins. I'm sorry I didn't get it done earlier in the week, but you know what? I got sick and I couldn't talk. So you're looking at one of the amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. Proteins can be a few amino acids long. They are put together by getting rid of this H, O, and H, in other words, water. It's a dehydration reaction that makes peptide bonds that string different amino acids together in long chains. Those chains can be a few amino acids long, or they can be thousands and thousands of amino acids long. So in our bodies, when we eat meat and other sources of protein, and our digestive system uses acid and pepsin in our stomach to start breaking these peptide bonds. Then once the food gets into the duodenum, or the upper small intestine, chymotrypsin and trypsin from the pancreas also continues to break down these peptide bonds. And there are two other enzymes that work to do it too. And eventually we get amino acids individually that are absorbable through the microvilli into the bloodstream. They are then packaged after they travel to the liver and sent to where they are needed. And so what functions do proteins have in our body? And how do we use these amino acids to build proteins back? Of course, we string these proteins or these amino acids back together, and then we use them to build different things that we need in our body. So one of the main functions of proteins in our body is building material, okay? When you look in the mirror, what do you see? Skin, collagen. Collagen is the most important protein, structural protein that we have as animals. When we look in the mirror, we see collagen. We also have keratin, which makes up our hair. See, keratin, and our fingernails, keratin, fingernails. But the collagen is the most important structural component of our muscles and skin and our bone. Collagen actually makes up the structural framework of our bone that is then plastered with hydroxyapatite by osteoblasts, and it is the minerals called hydroxyapatite that give bone its rigid structure. If you have rickets, you can't do that very well. You have bow legs and other deformities. You can look up rickets on the internet. In fact, I'll do it, well, maybe I'll do it for you later. But if you have vitamin D deficiencies, rickets can cause developmental problems, especially in growing children. But since there's bone remodeling going on all the time, rickets can cause developmental problems or disease state in adults too. To avoid rickets, our government says, thou shalt put vitamin D in milk and fortify other foods also too. So why do we do that? Our normal source of vitamin D is in the skin in reaction to sunlight. But we don't run around naked in the wintertime in Wisconsin, except for maybe a solar plunge or two, and we don't have that much sunlight. So vitamin D deficiency is pretty characteristic of our diet. Therefore, fortified foods fortified with vitamin D, are important to keep us from having that disease problem. When you study protein synthesis, you study enzymes. We talk about the production of enzymes more than anything else, right? Enzymes are used to speed up chemical reactions, as it says here. But let's be real about this. All chemical reactions can go both directions. Enzymes make our chemical reactions go in the direction they're supposed to go to maintain our health and our lives. Some enzymes make chemical reactions proceed at rates of 1,000,000 times greater than they would at the same temperature and under the same conditions as they would without enzymes. Enzymes are essential to keep us alive. Without them, or with mutations that cause our enzymes to change, we can have serious disease problems. Some proteins are used as transporters to get different things across the cell membranes. Other proteins, there's two kinds of proteins. Some are steroids and are made from um, uh, glycerol or what is it that, I'm sorry, fats anyway. They're aromatic fats. And but there are some hormones that are octopeptides that are basically short-chain proteins, and like insulin, that regulates it helps our cells be able to take up sugar from the blood, and then glucagon, which puts more sugar in the blood if we are short on sugar in the blood. So this is a feedback mechanism that keeps us homeostatically healthy, or not if we have diabetes, for example. Antibodies circulate in the body and are involved in immune defense. We call them the globulins. Immunoglobulins are about 5 different A, B, C, D, and E type immunoglobulins are antibody types that have specific functions. Also, myoglobin, which is a protein that is in our muscles that helps carry oxygen, and hemoglobin in our red blood cells that helps carry oxygen, or is essential for carrying oxygen. Without proper amount of iron in our diet, we can't make the hemoglobin molecules, which are a protein molecule associated with iron. And if we can't do that, we say that we have iron deficiency anemia, and we're not getting enough oxygen in our body. There are other disease conditions too. And then proteins that play an important role in regulating fluid balance and interacting in the kidneys. Now, the only time that we have a real problem with a high protein diet is with people that have kidney malfunctions. So if you have kidney disease, high protein diets could be detrimental. Otherwise, there's no evidence that any high protein diet is either good or bad for muscle building, for example, or other things. Now, there's some association between high protein diets, and cancer and heart disease. But the actual evidence suggests that the associations are only associations, and that those disease states are not really related to the protein we take in, but related to the other aspects of what comes with them, like high salt content in our food, high fat content in our food. Because people say, well, plant proteins are better for you than animal proteins. Well, that's probably not true. If you eat a good diet, a balanced diet with meat and dairy products, you'll get pretty much complete sets of amino acids that you need to build the proteins for your body. If you are a vegan, then you will probably have a problem with balancing the protein in your diet, because you need to make sure that you get all the essential amino acids, and some protein sources from plants are deficient in some amino acids, like corn and beans. If you eat beans and eat corn together, you should be all right. You should have everything. Now, there is one other aspect that's sort of interesting, and it has to do with the amount of cholesterol in our diet. And that was the word I was trying to think of. Cholesterol is a precursor to hormones. Your liver makes cholesterol. It's hard to decrease the amount of cholesterol in your diet or in your bloodstream from just dieting, because if you are short on cholesterol, your liver will make more. But there are some disease states associated with that. And it is true, if you look it up on the internet, vegans stink less. In other words, they have less body odor. And I can tell you that from my past experience over time. And so that's one benefit of being a vegan. But if you're going to be a vegan, you need to be careful about your nutrition, because it is hard sometimes to get all the essential amino acids that you need, especially in the winter when fresh vegetables and fruits can be less available in the stores. And so I would be careful about it, but I certainly support it. And ecologically, as we study the global warming and the global food shortages and concerns about that, we are telling people that it is more efficient for humans to eat more plant foods and less animal-derived foods because it takes a big part of efficiency of food production away. So when we have to feed plants to our animals and then eat the animals, we lose 90% of the food value or the energy there. And so one of the problems we're concerned about related to global warming and overpopulation of the earth is that as the third world gets, or the underdeveloped world gets more and more developed and becomes wealthier, the people have a greater taste for meat and a greater demand for higher quality, more concentrated foods, which is going to compete with us for meat and raise the food prices for us too. But it's also going to mean that there's going to be pressures on the agricultural land available for food production to produce more of that and less of what we really need to feed everybody in the world. And we are not feeding everybody in the world now, but we have the capacity to do it. And we know that the amount of food demand is going to increase dramatically. Some people suggest up to 7 times what it is now. And they wonder how we are going to possibly feed all the people in the world in the future. Protein in our diet is one of the high food demand concerns, and we need to be smart about it. And it can personally help us to save money and to lead us to a healthier body and better feelings of well-being. And you don't stink as much either. Okay, thanks. See you on the flip side.